So let me begin with my introduction. So welcome everyone. Today we are delighted to host the second part of a four-part webinar series. This webinar today is dealing with skills, workforce, and training and learning aspects of AI and GIS, and focuses on three wide areas, starting with academic, industry, and public sector, covering all aspects of AI across our societies. So, right. So this is the four webinar series. So this is the second one. There is two more upcoming for the next 2 months. So the next one is coming on May 29th, same time. We're going to be talking about AI policy, legislative, and management aspects and their integration. And the last one will be on the end of June, and it will start coping with the social aspects of AI, the AI ethics, sustainability, and equity in social and collective settings. If you missed the first webinar, there's a QR code to access the recording and the slides, and it has a link to our video on our YouTube channel as well. Now, a few things about the California Geographic Information Association. So there is a few upcoming events, and the 2026 awards program is nominations are open and will be open until May 8th. And it's focusing on the excellence and innovation, coordination, collaboration, mapping and visualization, student awards, excellence in teaching, and the chairs award category. We also going to be having the award ceremony at ESRI UC in San Diego this summer on July 13th. So for those interested in joining us. If you have a nomination, there's a link to submit your nomination. If you are also interested in joining CGIA, a few of the things that we are focusing is advocate for California GIS, share our best professional practices, and share them not only with our workplaces, but also among our members and across different sectors and areas. We create peer networks of people working closely together. This is probably the end of my first year on the board of directors of CGIA, and I'm really delighted with all the people that have been working the last year, and it's been a very rewarding experience. I've been a member of CGIA for a few years now, but this is my first term as a board member. The last one is, of course, including those webinars, focusing on discovering, training, educations, and wherever we can, sharing jobs and opportunities as well. There's a link to become a member if you're interested. This session will be recorded, so please be advised that our talks and our interactions, along with the slides and all the materials that will be presented today, will be available for you. So the recording will be listed both on our CGIA website, but also on our YouTube channel. There's a QR code for that as well. Now, one thing that we want to ask participants today, this is different, so if you don't mind, please take our participant survey. You can scan the code, and I'll put also, once the talk start, the link to the chat, so you can take our survey. You can take it either now or after the webinar. So we also have a couple of very short 2-question polls. Without any more delays, let me introduce our today's speakers. The first one is Didi Richards. He's a senior consultant in training and education with ESRI. She specializes in learning and skills development. I'm not going to read the entire, it's on our website as well. And I put a QR code to her LinkedIn profile if you're interested to connecting with her. Kristina is the manager of Artificial Intelligence Initiative and CLAOC. I have the pleasure of working with her for a few years now, and it's been a very rewarding experience. CLAOC is a unique organization that focuses on bringing and strengthening the skills for AI in Orange County. Also, a LinkedIn profile QR code for her. Please feel free to connect and communicate with her as well. Tim Steed is the Assistant General Manager of the Orange County Employees Association. He has long experience in organization and campaigns and union work, but also I worked with him in the OCEA legislative committee, working with AI very closely the last year or so. So he has a wealth of knowledge, especially with organizational workforce and also legislative issues with AI. I put a LinkedIn connection to his OCEA page, so you can see what OCEA is doing and what initiatives we are taking. So before we go, so I'll stop here my sharing and we'll move to the first one. But you're also going to see while the participants start, I'm going to put the starting poll, just a couple of questions, just a click, so we can collect some information as well. So without any further ado, Didi, you have the podium.
Yes, thank you so much, Costas, for organizing this. And I'm very excited to be here with all of you today. And thank you to my co-presenters, Tim and Kristina. I'm looking forward to learn from everyone on the call today. So I'm going to share my screen, and please let me know if I don't think I can see you after I do this. I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay, can you see my notes or can you see my slides?
We can see your slides.
Okay, excellent. It worked right this time. So hi, everybody. Again, thanks so much for having me here today. I'm Didi Richards, and I work with state governments in California, Nevada, and Hawaii for skills development and learning and training. And today I'm speaking with you about how ESRI can get you AI ready. First, I have a disclaimer, though. I am not an AI expert, and I certainly am not an ESRI AI expert. I may not have answers to your questions, but I will find the person that does. And as AI is changing, we are developing new ways to incorporate it into our training and give you new ways to learn. So this is just the beginning. Okay, first things first, we have to talk about metadata. Metadata is, data about your data, information about your content. It's essential for making geospatial data reusable, rediscoverable, and AI ready. Metadata describes the who, what, where, when, and how of data. What a data set represents, how it was created, who created it, when it was last updated, and how it should be used. Good metadata helps users discover, understand, and trust data. And I'm going to foot stomp on trust here, because when we're talking about data and AI, We all have seen things that AI has done that is not exactly correct. So it's kind of that concept of garbage in, garbage out. We really want to make sure that our metadata is excellent before we start using AI. As I was doing research for this talk today, I came along a quote by Hagen Falakatar, and she said that metadata is no longer just a documentation best practice, but it is a technical prerequisite. In other words, it's a necessity. The first step in getting ready for AI is ensuring you have clean and trustworthy metadata. We do have some learnings on this, which we'll go into in just a minute. And we can also work with you in a workshop or activity to assist you with setting data standards and metadata standards to ensure your metadata is AI ready and clean. So I'm going to jump off that soapbox for just a minute. I'll get back on it in a moment. And we're going to get into some skills development and learning resources that we have to help you understand AI in ArcGIS and get ready for AI. There we go. Okay. Sorry, my slides are not advancing as they should. All right, so one of the funnest ways that I think you can start kind of getting your feet wet with AI is by joining our early adopter program. It's so easy, and it's really the early adopter program provides ESRI users with access to our developing products and emerging technologies. You're kind of getting that first glimpse of what's going on behind the curtain. You can interact with ESRI development teams. You get access to software. You have testing programs adjusted as products evolve because of your contributions. And you just log in with your ArcGIS account and choose which programs you're interested in. They're fun, interactive, easy to work with, and you have the ability to give feedback to our developers. The work that we do at ESRI is for you. It's for your benefit. So it's important that we have your feedback. These programs change throughout the year, so be sure to check back often to see what's new. These are the current betas that we have. So if any of those look interesting to you, these are all for assistance in our different programs. So feel free to join the link, and you can just Google ESRI Early Adopter Program as well, and you'll get into it right away. That's one of my favorite things to do. I've done a couple of them, and they're really fun. Okay. When we talk about, at ESRI, when we talk about learning plans and kind of learning from the ground up. And so I mentioned before that metadata comes first. So even if you're not focusing on metadata, maybe it's not your job to do that, it's still a good idea to have a good understanding of it. Our 1-hour training seminar for metadata essentials for AI readiness or AI ready GIS is a really good way to get your feet wet with metadata that is suitable for AI. Take a quick look at the video too. It's only 5 minutes on exploring importing data into Pro. Those will give you a little bit of a high level, very quick view of metadata in AI. And although it's not specific to metadata, but data in general, our learning plan on fundamentals of data management will teach you about spatial data, data management, getting started with a geodatabase, and creating and editing data in Pro. So if you're interested in learning more about data management, this is a great place to start as well. Metadata is data about your data. So learning more about data management and what's in data, how to use it, is a good place to be as well. At an agency or program level, we also have professional services workshops, like activities and that can assist you with governance around your data and metadata to ensure your metadata is AI ready. This is what we currently have to help you learn more about metadata. And as I mentioned, everything's changing with AI. I'm sure there'll be more things down the road, but this is what we have currently. So now let's move on to what we have for learning AI specifically in ArcGIS. Okay, let's get AI ready. I'm excited about this. AI is so fun to work with and to experience. And our web courses are one of the best ways to gain basic understanding of a product. So this web course at the top, just in about an hour, Introduction to AI in ArcGIS, is a perfect way to begin your journey of understanding AI and how it correlates in ArcGIS. I believe it's important to start your learning journey from the ground up to build a strong foundation of knowledge and skill so that you're more capable of growing your capacity for new skills and knowledge down the road. For instance, you can't write a letter if you don't know the alphabet. We want to kind of start at baseline and build you up from there. If you aren't familiar with ArcGIS products, you might want to consider taking the ArcGIS Fundamentals Learning Plan. It has 3 courses that will help build your foundation of GIS and ArcGIS knowledge, and it allows you to grow your capacity as you continue to learn. Having solid foundational knowledge of ArcGIS will assist you in more fully absorbing what you learn about AI and how it's incorporated in ArcGIS. For deeper learning, if you want to go a little bit further, for deeper learning of ArcGIS Online and Pro, you may want to consider our instructor-led classes. These webinars are excellent for basic learning. Our instructor-led courses are for deep knowledge and learning. It's a 1 or 2 or 3 day class with an instructor where you can ask questions and benefit from the Q&A from the group that you're taking the class with. It's the most in-depth learning that we offer. So if you need these courses aren't specific to AI, but they will help you learn ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro so that you'll better understand the ArcGIS environment and how AI down the road is incorporated with that. Okay, so we've covered the early adopter program, metadata, and AI trainings. Now let's go on to GeoAI. Our 1-hour training seminar, these training seminars and webinars that are short are so great to get your feet wet with things. This will give you basic understanding of how to leverage GeoAI capabilities across the ArcGIS system, how to automate workflows and analyze data at scale. It's really solid base training for you. And again, if you want a deeper dive into GeoAI, you want to look at the GeoAI Essentials Learning Plan. For those of you that aren't familiar with our learning plans, they are really these kind of an amalgamation of different types of learning, from webinars and web courses to videos or maybe documentation, training seminars, and instructor-led courses. So we put all of those together in a specific format that goes from the top to the bottom. In this one, it's 17 courses. Starting at the top, again, gives you that foundational base learning that will help you grow and build skill sets into each additional course that you take. And with these 17 courses ranging from understanding GeoAI and ArcGIS to geostatistical, it's a tongue twister on a Friday, geostatistical interpolation, and to mapping clusters and space-time analysis, you'll gain extensive knowledge about how GeoAI integrates with ArcGIS. So by now you're probably understanding that we have some high-level learning and that gives you introduction to a concept, skill, or product. We have that deep learning with learning plans and instructor-led courses. Choose whichever fits your needs. And if you'd like some guidance on a topic, that's what we're here to do. Your training consultants are here to help you with that exactly. Also, be sure to sign up for our very popular massive open online course in September, our MOOC, which is Spatial Data Science, Advancing Your Analytics. That incorporates machine learning and deep learning concepts. Okay, but wait, of course, there's more. We're very excited about this. This is kind of the buzz in training services. We are very excited about the new development for 2 classes for AI. They are focused on assistance for 2 of our most commonly used products. I can't really talk about that right now. You're really the first group that's hearing about this. So I hope you're as excited as we are. They are also going to be half-day classes, which we do not normally do. So this is going to give you some really good base knowledge while digging in a little bit deeper to these concepts. And I'll have more information for you over the next few months as these courses are developed. They were literally announced to us just a few days ago. If you'd like to keep up to date on what's going on, down here you can catch my monthly training update, and I'll send it right to your email. Just connect with me at ddrichards@esri.com, and I'll be happy to send that out to you. Really focus on kind of high level, what's going on in new classes, new webinars, what's the hot topic, metadata or accessibility. We have all just bits and pieces of things that you might be interested in. So what I've talked about mostly here today is really for end users of ArcGIS and incorporating AI and learning AI in ArcGIS. But if you're more at a program level or agency level, we do have workforce development strategies and plans that I can work with you to create. And again, I mentioned the activities and workshops that we have as well with you. We would work together with professional services to create a workshop that aligns to exactly your needs. We have a lot of ways to help you learn, adapt, and grow your skills with AI. So I'll leave you with this thought because I know there's a lot of concern or a little bit of trepidation about AI. And I love this quote from Enamal Hawk. AI is advancing, but human intelligence remains crucial for true innovation. Let's embrace AI's power while staying true to what makes us human, our creativity, our empathy, and our problem-solving skills. In other words, we need you. Getting prepared for AI, understanding what impacts it, like metadata, and creating space to learn and grow your knowledge and capacity in AI and ArcGIS will help your knowledge and skills, will help keep them relevant and crucial to our work ahead in the state of California. So thank you again. My email, once again, if you want to jot that down and reach out to me anytime. If I'm not your dedicated training consultant, I will connect you with who is. And if there are any questions that you have outside of this webinar, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help. That's what we're here to do. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Didi, and I appreciate you sharing all those interesting resources and courses and training modules for us. I'm sure there's going to be some questions at the end, but I'm really excited that ESRI is putting a wealth of resources for professionals there, so we can train ourselves and get more prepared for the workplace. Now let's switch to a different kind of perspective from the industry and the collective organizational standpoint. So Kristina, the podium is yours.
Awesome, thank you. Let me share and hopefully do this properly. Okay, is everybody able to see my slides and not my notes? All right, perfect. So, hi everyone, I am Kristina Horn. I'm the manager of the AI initiative at CLAOC, which stands for the CEO Leadership Alliance of Orange County. I manage our AI initiative around programs, research, thought leadership pieces. Costas and I have worked on many of those, but today I'll focus more on our talent initiative. In addition to that, I am also a lecturer at Chapman University, where I teach LLM ethics, technical writing, as well as AI tools for the workplace. And previously, I have also worked for the National Humanities Center in their work on the intersections of the humanities and AI, as well as I have worked as a team leader and a research group member for the Center for AI and Digital Policy. So CLAOC, as Costas was saying, is a really unique organization. We're a nonprofit consortium of over 55 CEOs and business leaders in Orange County who are centered around really developing and retaining the talent needed for an inclusive innovation hub in Orange County. We're really unique because we're business led, we are cross sector, and we're employer informed by design. So that means everything that we do really starts from our member companies and how they are looking at the workforce. So our goal as well is that by 2030, we are hoping to put 20,000 Orange County residents representative of our demographics on the path to high wage innovation jobs. An interesting part of my job has been seeing how AI has become one of the reasons why our mission really matters when it comes to workforce development in Orange County. And so maybe for those of you who don't know Orange County, I will say it is very different than the Orange County that Costas and I actually work in. Typically, when I bring up Orange County, what comes to mind for many people is, shows like the OC or the Real Housewives of Orange County or Disneyland, which do all exist in Orange County or have been representations of Orange County. But the one that we actually work in is very different. So we have over 3.16 million residents, which makes us, I believe, the sixth largest county in the entire country. Additionally, we're also the 18th most diverse region in the United States, with about 34% of our residents identifying as Latino, 22% as Asian, and 38% as white. I was double checking these numbers, but actually our GDP is now $351 billion, which puts us at 8% of California's economy, and it puts us at ninth amongst US counties' economies. And additionally, something I found out is that if Orange County was a separate country, our economy output would actually rank us in the top 50 worldwide. So we're a very interesting and diverse county, counter to some of our representations in media. But we also have a lot of really core growing industries like healthcare, med tech, financial services, and increasingly tech and AI. So when we talk about Orange County, really there's so much that we could get into because there's so much of an economic impact that comes to Orange County. Which kind of brings us to the challenge of we have a great population, a very diverse population with people coming from different backgrounds. We have great weather. You really can't beat it. We have great things in Orange County like Disneyland. But that opportunity in Orange County isn't evenly shared amongst its residents. So in terms of low wage job growth, it's at 75% for jobs paying $60,000 a year or less, which for I'm sure all of us who live in California can understand the how difficult that is. 94% of our tech jobs in Orange County also require a bachelor's degree, which leaves about 60% of our working population outside of the ability to apply for those jobs or qualify for those jobs. And additionally, 90% of our venture capital still comes from outside of Southern California, which Costas and I were talking about some of that yesterday, which really makes it difficult for companies to come here and grow in Orange County. And so we essentially have these two Orange counties that we're grappling with, and at CLAOC, we're really working on closing that gap and being able to give opportunities to all of Orange County's residents. And so whenever I say that I work for the AI initiative at CLAOC, I usually get the question of why AI? But it's actually very unique because our AI talent lab actually started in 2021, which was prior to even ChatGPT being publicly available. I always say no one wanted to talk to me about AI when I first started working at CLAOC, and now people won't stop talking to me about it, which I love. But we actually had one of our members, Stuart McClure, who was really spearheading this for CLAOC and saw the potential for AI. And in addition to that, what we have been seeing is that there's been a huge investment in AI across Orange County, and it's showing up in every single industry. It doesn't just show up in the tech industry, but across all of them, whether that's healthcare, financial services, real estate. And also what we're seeing as well is that the talent gap is really widening as the demand outpaces our regional supply, which then goes to kind of the brain drain that we talk about, and needing to import talent to Orange County. And so that's what's really prompted us to have an initiative focused on AI talent rather than having it as just part of our general workforce work. And so we actually partnered with McKinsey in 2024 to look at what is the state of AI in Orange County, and we found some really interesting data points. And For many of you, as you know, data from 2024 is already way too old at this point when it comes to AI. But I do find these numbers really relevant when we start talking about the growth of it. So when you look at the growth of AI investment in Orange County companies grew by over 400% annually between 2008 and 2023. And by 2023, we had nearly $3 billion in capital invested in AI deals and startups in Orange County. And when you look at the investment per capita, we actually are really on par with a lot of other AI hubs. When you look at regions outside of Chicago and Houston, Orange County is actually quite on par with those, and we are not far behind LA as well. So even though you don't usually think of Orange County as this thriving AI hub, we really are, in a sense, growing into that. And in addition to that, what we're also seeing is that this isn't just happening in what we would think of as traditional tech jobs. When you look at jobs that are requesting AI skills, what we found was that 55% of those job postings are for technical roles of what you would think of when it comes to maybe computer science or engineering. But 45% of those jobs are actually for non-technical roles, ones that you really wouldn't think of. So it could be HR, marketing, operations, etc. And that means that AI is no longer just for the tech sector. It's nearly half of all AI skill demand in our region is coming for non-technical roles. And that really reshapes the way that we think about AI workforce development and what we do with the talent that we have. As Costas knows, we have a tech leader group at CLAOC, which convenes on a quarterly basis. And we have started pulling them and surveying them and having discussions with them around AI skills that are needed because we have educators, we have talent come to us all of the time asking, great, what skills do I need? They want a list of skills that I can give them. And while I can kind of provide some insight to that, it really isn't that easy, as we all know. And so, one of the main things that's come out of all of these discussions is that really what employers are looking at is human skills more than anything else at this point, right? We've asked them and they say, okay, technical skills, AI literacy and tool proficiency, prompt engineering, design, data literacy and analysis, machine learning workflows, QA, cloud infrastructure, right? We would love all of this. But their main thing that they really spent so much time talking about was actually critical thinking and problem solving. And we see that, whether that's for a technical role or a non-technical role, but they talk about how that's really what they're looking for in their talent at this point. There was also discussion of, communication skills, systems thinking, being able to adapt, to continuously learn, as well as catalytic questioning or being able to kind of have broader questions about the work that they're doing. And so when they were talking, they say, that's great that you have a computer science degree. When I'm hiring you, I know that that's what you learned in school, but what I really care about are these other skills that don't show up on your degree. And so another key takeaway that we had is kind of this critical thinking paradox. So on the one hand, AI makes it easier than ever to produce output really quickly. You can draft, summarize, analyze, code. Things that would take hours are now taking minutes, or things that would take weeks are now taking hours to minutes. But what they were also talking about was this risk of this over reliance on AI, especially early in learning or early in a career. So they worry that if talent doesn't build that underlying judgment or that critical thinking or that expertise, that they can become faster but less thoughtful at the same time with their work. So we have this problem where critical thinking is simultaneously the most needed and the most at-risk skill when it comes to the AI era. And this is one of the biggest challenges our member organizations are wrestling with at the moment. So this question of how do we help people use AI without decreasing the very skills that make it useful? And this is especially pressing, they say, early in career talent, where there's a theme that I'll come back to a little bit later when I talk about our programming. And a third and final takeaway from what we have noticed when we talk to our tech leaders is that the jobs themselves are shifting even more so than we talk about skills or talent. So for technical roles, we're seeing a move from core programming towards a focus on AI integration, evaluation, and quality assurance. Engineers are more so platform power users who rigorously test AI models against complex edge cases. And then for non-technical roles, we see it as really being able to empower people in those non-technical positions, such as HR, marketing, operations, and other functions to perform things that they would not have been able to do without maybe a technical team. So coding without coders is one of those things that's often talked about, but being able to come up with these prototypes before even needing to talk to a technical team. So still needing that expertise, but being able to illustrate your ideas much more concretely. And so there's really this interesting shift that's happening where AI literacy in and of itself is being seen as a baseline skill, whether that's for a technical role or a non-technical role. And so I think when I started, there was a lot of focus on, okay, we need to talk about AI skills for technical roles in the tech industry. And I've seen that it's now shifted to, regardless of whichever one of our member companies or employers talent is looking at, we need to make sure that they at least have this very foundational understanding of what AI is. Which leads me to the work that I do at the AI Talent Lab in Orange County. And so really our programs that we have aren't just for one age group or with one focus. So we have our Careers in AI program at the high school level. This is in partnership with Intel and the Orange County Department of Education. We run that through one of the local ROPs, so students actually get their elective credits for doing that. And we have actually had winners at Intel's Global Impact Festival for 2 years through that. Additionally, we previously ran the Breakthrough Tech program with UCLA, where we had over 40 community college and university students take part in it. They were able to get machine learning certifications, but they also worked on practical industry-sponsored projects. So they would work with an employer for a few months on a project that the employer had picked, so that they were not only learning things, but they were also putting that into practice. Which is a big thing that we hear as well when it comes to our employers, that it is great that you have this degree, but if you've never put it into practice, that's a lot to ask on an employer to be your first employer, I guess, in the sense of your first time putting any of this into use if you're doing that in a full-time job. Additionally, we run our AI micro internship programs. So I will talk a little bit about what we've done with Costas and OC Public Works, but we've also had other employers like Kaiser Permanente, Expert AI Consulting, Whisk Aero, Ingram Micro, Cal State Fullerton, and others who take on students for typically 6 weeks for career exploration experiences where students will work on one project within that organization, where they will learn about what it means to be part of that organization and put those things that they're learning at school into use. And additionally, we have other programs that we run, for example, with the local children's hospital, which has nothing to do with AI, but we actually do have all students who take part in our programming do AI workshops and take part in our AI guest speaker series. So this way they can build at least some form of literacy in our program, because we, again, do not want this to just be the students who are working with our tech companies, but something that every student who takes part in our programming has knowledge of. And in addition to that, we also do upskilling for professionals who are already with their employer for many years now. So what one of my colleagues has been working at is through a California Jobs First grant, actually developing a course with UCI Division of Continuing Education to upskill 75 water district employees across Orange County in applied AI for infrastructure as well. So using AI in a way that many people did not think of to help upskill employees who are already working for the county. And we've had a lot of impact and success to date. So over 8,000 stakeholders through our AI events that we have had. I've been very privileged to have Costas as a speaker at many of my events, but we also participate in others, whether it's at universities, for other organizations, or for our member companies. As I said, through our California Jobs First program, we've had 75 professionals upskilled through that. But additionally, through all of our other programming, we've had over 400 high school, college, and university students be able to take part in whether that be a course, a workshop, or one of our micro internship programs. Which then brings me to this example that is most relevant for all of you in GIS today, but it is the work that Costas and I did through our 2023 OC Public Works micro internship program, where we had students really introduced or skilled on ArcGIS Pro. Thank you, Dee Dee, on LiDAR, drones, digital twins, as well as Python. And so we actually have an article on our website that I can link to. I didn't want to, I wanted to be mindful of time because I recognize I can also talk for a very long time. But during the summer of 2023, we actually worked with OC Public Works on an AI micro internship experience. This was for 11 high school students who are rising seniors. They were from 9 different Orange County high schools, and they spent 6 weeks immersed in this geospatial AI and digital transformation experience. And anyone who knows Costas knows this was not a watered down version of a project. This was real work that the students were doing, real meaningful work. So a lot of them learned for the first time how to use ArcGIS Pro for spatial data analysis. Many of them had an understanding or a knowledge of Python, but they learned how to utilize that for automation. They earned online certifications. They worked on site at 2 of OC Public Works' campuses. They learned data capture with a total station. They saw how LiDAR worked and positioning system devices. They also did drone reality capture, flight design, and they did actual field research at one of the local parks. And they also built tools through this work that they did, actual real working tools that utilized real OC Public Works data. So they worked in 3 teams, but they produced multiple different projects. So we have the Orange County Flood Severity Dashboard, which also included an address level flood severity inspector app. They also created a fire severity dashboard and a wildfire hazard potential address inspector, a traffic accident hotspot analysis that utilized crash data from 2012 to 2022, and a COVID-19 spatial analysis looking at cases by population density, housing, and hospital proximity. So these are tools that actually address issues in Orange County, right? We're talking about flood management, we're talking about wildfire risk, traffic safety, public health, things that are practical use cases that they can use in future jobs. And so there were really 3 very unique things that I loved about this. It was a really great example of what's possible when industry, education, and community partners aligned. Costas and all of the OC Public Works teams brought really deep domain expertise to these students. We were able to give kind of program structure. All of the students who take part in our program also take part in workforce development workshops, as well as social and emotional intelligence workshops, as well as we also, surprisingly enough, many of them do not know how to use any of Microsoft Suite. So we even have them go through, this is how you use Excel and PowerPoint as well. As someone who is right now using Google Slides, I guess I'm part of the problem. But these were really incredible students who brought a lot of curiosity and capability that I'm sure Costas, if you asked him about, they were really an exceptional group of students. And it also really showed what we say when we say work-based learning has to be real and practical. They weren't just watching tutorials, they weren't just kind of doing busy work or getting anybody coffee, but they were using these tools on data, like open data that was available. And they were able to learn processes that were things that OC Public Works does in their work. And so they were learning not only these skills, but how to apply that practically and use critical thinking in order to make judgments about what would be things that are important to develop as tools and what should we consider within those. And it also really showed the practicality of the intersections of AI skills and GIS, which was something that I was very fortunate to learn a lot from Costas. A lot of these students were interested in AI and in tech, but uh, I don't think many of them had any GIS knowledge or skills going into this. And so it really helped them to learn not only new skills, but also how they can apply these in GIS work. And they were able to build that kind of fluency and that familiarity in it through these kinds of programs. So it was a very unique experience that I was very happy to take part of, and can answer more questions about later. But so I kind of my main takeaways that I would hope that you would get from this is when we have these discussions around AI skills, it's important that we're not just talking about the technical aspect. It's really important to think about the humans that are involved in all of this. What are we talking about when it comes to critical thinking, communication, adaptability, curiosity? Those are things that I think should be even more spoken about when we have these discussions. And also learning has to change with the work. I think that's the main thing that we hear from all of this is that this practical experience working on real problems is so important because that helps build that judgment that is really needed in talent today to think about creative problem solving. Additionally, regions, regardless of whichever, but especially in Orange County, I see is that you really need this kind of connection within the ecosystem. So you need employers, educators, workers, government, and all communities to be able to be aligned on everything that's happening here, or to at least have connection points so that they can have open communication amongst everyone. And finally, I think when we're talking about AI, I don't really like to think of it as keeping up with AI. I really like to think about us, how are we using AI? How are we shaping it? Who is benefiting from it? How are we using it? Who isn't benefiting from it? And therefore, like, what does the future of work look like? What can we build as a future together? And I will then end by just saying thank you to my co-presenters and to CGIA for having me. My email is here. Please feel free to reach out. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kristina. That was a really exciting presentation. Looking forward to the questions and answers section at the end. Now, the final speaker is Tim Steed. So, Tim, your podium.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you, Kristina. Thank you, Dee Dee. That was awesome. It was great to see that without any pre-gaming, that our presentations definitely have a lot of overlap and correlation that I think will be really helpful. So let me get going here. First, thank you so much for having me. It's quite an honor. Thanks everyone too for spending a bit of your time on a Friday on your lunch break, learning about a very important topic. Shout out to Costas as well and the rest of the CGIA leadership team. Also, we have some OCEA leaders I want to shout out. So I know Leslie Trejo, Michael Garcia, and of course Costas, the man of the hour. He's also very active in our association. So thanks again. Um, for those that might be a little bit new to what a union is, right? This is what my whole presentation is, but a little level setting just for folks who might not be as familiar. A union simply is just an organization formed by workers who join together to speak with one voice at work. Really, we base our principle on this notion of having strength in numbers, and when workers come together in numbers, they have a better say on the job, and then also not just on the job for things like their pay, but also their professional development. We truly believe at OCEA that unions exist, particularly in the public sector, to enhance the role, value of government to just make workplaces more efficient and fair. A little bit about OCEA, our union. And we represent public sector workers in the County of Orange. Our biggest group of workers are workers who work directly for the County of Orange. So those OC Public Works workers that we learned about, those are under the OCEA umbrella. I'm sure as their managers as well who aren't in our union but work for the same entity. We also represent most but not all of the cities in Orange County, and that's folks from City Hall, Public Works, and everything in between. And we also represent a number of water districts in Orange County. So, Kristina, I'm sure some of those water district employees that went through your program were proud OCEA members. So as you can see, as far as service delivery in the County of Orange, our members are really at every single touch point, and geospatial data being used for our public health workers, be it tracking diseases, our public works, folks for pollution, our folks who are working on helping the unhoused. We understand the value of AI, and our members are utilizing it at almost every single point that we've heard about here today. But behind those service delivery models, the actual infrastructure, our union is comprised of workers, of people. And our members, while it's easy to get lost into the deliverables, knowing that there are humans at each and every one of these touch points, and AI is going to impact the work that they do. And one thing about public sector workers, and I'm sure we have a number on here right now, is that it's a little bit more than a job. It's definitely a calling, and a lot of folks derive their identity and just their real sense of self through tapping into something larger than themselves, and that thing is public service. So as AI starts to come in, we have to acknowledge in public service the tension that exists. And it's kind of this, I'll speak for myself and how I've experienced it. I began this year in 2026 gung-ho on upskilling our internal team here at the union, and all of the virtues that AI is going to bring to the modern workplace, and all of the exciting things that it can do. And then I found myself 3 weeks later at a conference up in Sacramento, hearing stories from workers who have a dystopian take on how AI is beginning to de-skill or devalue the work that they had grown to love. So using this, very technical meme here to drive home the point, you can kind of have that tension or even your own whiplash between the upside of AI, but also some of the very real fear and tension that folks are feeling about its impact on their jobs. So I do want to dive into that tension. Hate to bring you to the sad part of the meme, but we will get to the happy part of the meme. But it's important to understand, where the workforce is right now as it relates to AI. So again, AI to enhance public service. We know that it does the impossible. I mean, that is the fundamental part of it. We heard about metadata, the things that AI has the ability to do is beyond what any individual can do in their own individual knowledge. It allows for public servants to dive into deeper work. Using the example of a social worker didn't go to college for many years in order to do paperwork, right? They want to do social work. They want to work with people and help them out in their time of need. So if AI can allow a social worker to spend more of that time in their profession, that is what we want to see. It can do analysis and evaluation on the use of public services that, again, no individual could, which then will help to better resource allocation, which enhances public service and is a benefit to the taxpayer. But let's look at some of the parts of how folks actually feel about AI as we have this presentation here today. One thing that we know is that there's some fear about it. So there is some fear as it relates to AI, and we see a majority of Californians are concerned about the future of AI advancements than excited. One focus group participant, and this might be something you identify with or have colleagues that feel this way, that companies are ramming things through fast. It feels sketchy. Honestly, it's freaking me out. So we're seeing this fear again. 57% of Americans believe that they have little to no control over AI in their life, so that feeling of hopelessness. And 61% of Americans say they want more control over AI. Now, what is that in the form of legislation, their own personal lives? Not too sure, but that sense of not having control over this new technology. Now, a unifying through line of folks that have those concerns about artificial intelligence is it relates to safety. So 80% of Americans polled that believe there should be rules around safety, even if it means developing AI capabilities more slow. And this is a view that is held across ideological designations. So we're seeing this discomfort develop as it relates to AI, and why that's applicable here is it's going to have an impact on this upskilling, training, and introduction of this new technology to the workforce. Again, of that 57% I referenced earlier who felt that AI presented risk, broken down, they ask those folks, well, what one thing is making you most, kind of afraid? And the highest was the erosion of human abilities and connections. We heard from our previous presenters about that, being able to do things faster, but at the expense of your own innate logic, knowledge, and abilities. So that is something that the industry is seeing, but we're also feeling in the workforce. And these statistics that I've shared with you are statistics that I have felt anecdotally working with workers in the public sector workspace, rank and file workers and day-to-day representation. Doesn't take a scientific poll to sometimes tell you what your heart and gut is telling you, but it certainly helps when you do have it backed up by statistics. So you're seeing, that erosion of human ability, but also the connection. And I think that's something that is very hard to define from a public policy perspective, a training perspective, because you're tapping into something that's a little bit deeper than that. And it's really about our innate as a species, what we derive out of work. And it's, that we as a species are genetically hardwired to work, and our destiny has been shaped by a unique convergence of purposefulness, intelligence, and industriousness that has enabled us to build societies that are so much more than the sum of their parts. So there's inside of all of us, I think we feel this innate need to be useful, to be purposeful. When we are being industrious, we feel whole. All right. I'm not saying we all love work, right? If we won the lottery today, I'm sure some of us, would find another way to spend our time, but we certainly wouldn't want to be bored for the rest of our life. So this fear that's creeping in about just some of the things that it really means to be a worker, and how, particularly in the public sector, where workers, just feel such a sense of accomplishment when they're able to give back to their communities. So what are we doing about that? Well, it starts in two kind of distinct areas, at least speaking high level from the public sector, advocacy space. First, the public policy aspects, and I'll touch on this briefly and then get more into the contract language. But from a public policy perspective, we have to realize that the elected decision makers, so be it on a city council, a county board of supervisors, state assembly, state senate, up to the governor, these individuals, and I'm being very diplomatic here. Costas, I made a promise. I wasn't going to say anything profane, curse, so I'm keeping up my end of the bargain. That some of these elected officials do not have the best working understanding of artificial intelligence. So that means they have no North Star or guiding, kind of principles about how the decisions they make around AI might impact future generations. So that then means that often in a government setting, the public sector professionals, be it the IT directors, folks who are embracing IT, they begin to set the de facto policy on behalf of a city, a town, a state. So getting for us in the public sector, kind of knowing those perspectives and how they view AI is incredibly important. But instead of trying to wrestle all of those disparate interests, one way that the public sector labor movement has been looking to get at this is through actual negotiated contract language. So I want to get into that a little bit. First thing about it is it's you want things like job protection, access to AI training, but it also needs to come from a place of values. So, Kristina, you're going to recognize this next slide. At the Orange County Employees Association, I wager to say we're probably the only union in America that, absolutely bought into what seemingly is a boss run, if you will, kind of set of ideas. But these are the things you need to have a kind of buckets of values that you start to so you can kind of set your North Star. And thank you so much for introducing these to us and Costas. But things like inclusivity, transparency and accountability, ethical and the ethics part of it, literacy and workforce development, empowerment. Once you start from these values-based buckets, you begin to address those fears that I talked about earlier when people feel they don't have control, that it is something that is sketchy, that's being rammed down their throat. So the assurances that first come from, all right, we are going to move forward in this AI world from these broad principles so that we know when we take that leap together, we're taking that leap with trust. So another place that we are utilizing is also from the federal government, an AI Bill of Rights, but they have kind of 6 broad topics. And I know this is recorded, but this year, this is your exclusive view. We're taking this out of proposed contract language that we're going to be proposing in the next few weeks in the County of Orange. But we want to have, a value base that's safety, that's equity in design, that workers and also the community have data protection, the transparency. You see a lot of overlap, job preservation. So we're going to work on some of these items as well in our contract language so that we can begin to address that tension. Another incredible resource that we utilize, UC Berkeley Labor Center, and working with a lot of our partners around the nation, has come up with a whole inventory of contract provisions in the digital age. And I'd recommend particularly those that do training. You can just get some good ideas about some things that have been addressed. And I'm telling you, this covers everything. There is sample contract language in here for NFL players and their wearables, right? So when, who has access to the data in their wearables, because they're using that on sports teams, geospatial data, right? Making it to the NFL to enhance plays and get the maximum out of players. So this is a great way to just view how workers have found certain parts of AI and how they've negotiated contracts. But a few things that I want to draw your attention to is there's a whole section about that employer commitment to technology implementation, because the 60 or 70 folks on this call, I'm going to wager to say they're more open to AI. They're more likely to say, come to a webinar at noon on a Friday. But there's others that are going to be resistant. So it's going to have to not only be, giving people that access, but making sure that those that might not be early adopters are exposed. And then also giving workers a say. So much trust is developed when there's just communication. So here are some of those must-haves, and I'll start getting to my conclusion so we can get to any questions. But so much of this is about technology, but each one of these trainings end in a similar fashion, which is back to the human touch. There, before you begin training and implementing, be it in the geospatial space, social worker, law enforcement, there has to be comfort and assurance. Workers to take it on, to want to learn, they have to feel comfortable. It has to be open communication, and the training, as I said, has to be proactive. So there has to be that trust. It's the human touch for technology, communication, a role for your human resources department, because this, as you see, the role of AI not only in implementation, but in how it's going to land on the workforce. It's going to take we have an IT person here at our organization. And when AI first came along, we just thought that would be the only individual who would have to deal with it. But it is everywhere, and as was indicated earlier. And then those in a union environment, your collaboration with the bargaining units is just beyond anything. So thanks everyone again for allowing us to kind of share some of our perspective from a union world. We're looking forward to, in this next cycle, breaking some of that cutting edge with some new language. And have no fear, we have Costas on our article committee, so any AI language we negotiate will also have the CGIA input and seal of approval. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Tim, for this enlightening talk on the public sector aspects of AI. And let me recap and thank everyone for their talks. We'll go into, let me share my screen again. So we're gonna go into the question and answers. So please drop your questions in the chat, and I will communicate. Meanwhile, two things I will be remiss not to mention our big organizational members here. Their logos are on the page as well. And as we are going through the question and answer section, I will also open the closing poll for the people, the participants as well. So please drop your questions in the chat. So yeah, Jane, who is also from the public sector, from the state governance, asking a question to Tim: which classifications of your members who are most at risk for layoffs due to AI project diminishing their roles?
Not to be glib, but the short answer is yes. I think just recently we've seen advancements in robotics that robots are now laying bricks, so even bricklayers are starting to feel job insecurity from AI. But more specifically, I think workers who determine eligibility for access to benefits, that I think we've seen some of the largest creep. So I'd say, yeah, probably like a benefit eligibility kind of spot has been impacted. But things that keep Tim up at night is, which classification, because when I think there's some that are immune, you kind of find that it's actually is creepy. And even groundskeepers for certain cities, they're now, the lawnmowers are essentially Roombas. Think of a Roomba in your house, and now in a park, it's a driverless lawnmower. So, even the person who had to staff a lawnmower is now seeing their job potentially be impacted.
Jay is asking a question to DD. Does ESRI has or developing their own GeoLLM model? I think there's a lot of work with ESRI on the machine learning and the more data-driven AI, but there's a big question and one that I share as well. Where does ESRI stands in the LLM integration into GIS?
Yeah, that's a very good question and one that I don't have knowledge of. So that's one that I will have to come back to you with an answer on. From my knowledge, we are not developing AI, we are enabling it. So I will have to double check to see if we are doing anything with LLMs in Geo.
Yeah, I think on my talk last month, one of the challenges that we are having if we were to use out of the box LLM models is the proprietary, format of geodatabases that does not allow indexing and things like that. And we would love to see Esri developing some tools that allows us to do that.
I will pass that along to the powers that be. And I will let you all get back to Costas on that and then hopefully communicate that out, Costas.
Thank you, Didi. Another question for Tim. What assurances do we have that people will play by the same rules? It seems that we are relying on the good nature of people, which can be hit and miss. That's a question from Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. No, absolutely. And one part I think one of the next series we'll cover is some of the legislative, around it. I know Costas and we're seeing a lot of state legislation that I think is trying to also, create a legal framework kind of around some of that. Then for us, if it's negotiating a contract, then we have some enforcement ability when it's a negotiated contract. So between those two interplay, that's a way to get at it. But I think that's also a big challenge because of how quickly the industry is moving. That sometimes the legal framework or what we negotiate is behind kind of where it's gone.
Yeah, there's a couple of more questions for Tim, but before we go that, I have a question for Kristina and her cat here.
Yeah.
So how do you think, Kristina, we can start coordinating things across not just the public sector and the efforts we're doing here, but across the industry and the tech sector? Because I can see opportunities here, because the public sector efforts is focusing on the human aspects as well, but there is a human aspect as well with developing AI hub and jobs and opportunities here for Southern Californians and residents of the Orange County. So do you see opportunities of coordinating those efforts and bringing those across the spectrum, not just the public sector?
I think apologies, Toki will step out for this question. It's not his expertise. But in terms of coordinating across, whether it be public sector, industry, talent, and education, the difficulties that I find with it are a little bit to what Tim speaks of also, of there are a lot of people in certain positions who don't have a knowledge of what AI is or how it can be implemented or anything along those lines. And so I even remember, Costas, the panel that we did to a lot of government and local policy officials talking about AI and, this is something we should be thinking about and how are we talking about regulating, things like that. And we kind of just kept getting the response of like, oh, I don't get involved in that, or this is not something that is really top of mind for me. And so I find it difficult when that's kind of the response, which sometimes you will get from some educational partners or employers as well. But I think that is a difficulty. I think a lot of the work that I have been doing is just also trying to build that ecosystem. I know we do that through different working groups that we have. But the main thing that I was told when I started was our biggest problem in Orange County is that everything is very siloed. Everybody is kind of like industry is one silo, and even then they're all in their own little silos. Education is in its own silo, and then a lot of government is in its own silo. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of communication amongst all of them. So aside from just trying to get conversations started as a difficulty to that, I think having those difficult discussions around what does this mean, how are we going to address this, and what are the impacts of this going to be are probably some of the best ways that I would think to do that. But I'm hopeful that that will continue taking place.
Thank you, Christina. And Jane is asking a question about the negotiations. So I'll let Tim talk about this.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So it's how our bargaining is HR pushing back. So surprisingly, not so far. I shouldn't say surprisingly, that just shows I'm so pessimistic. No, I think there's also, from an employer side in the public sector, I think there's also uh, that same tension, and I think there's some collaborative opportunity because everyone's kind of experiencing the same, we're all kind of in this together. And I think even its nature where everyone's kind of impacted, even all the way up to the executives, they're like, whoa, what do you mean there's an AI that can do executive work when we all need to, we're all kind of in it together. So it's creating some good opportunities for collaboration. So far so good, but talk to me next week.
A question I think that Bonnie is asking, maybe all three of the speakers can address it, because this is important. There is, especially in Orange County, the last couple of years, there is a lot of hiring freeze. There's people who are leaving and never been replaced. There is a fear or in practice, AI is compensating for the lack of staff. And given now that the economy the last few months is going down the drain, that problem has the potential to be more intensified. I get your thoughts about that?
Here, I'll jump in right now. So my mic's hot, so glad I found out now, not the hard way. So the short answer is yes. I think technology, anytime there's a budget constraint, that just becomes, particularly in the public sector. Um, and yes, I think now the expanded role that AI can provide, and each day I'm sure there's a vendor who's identifying an apparatus of government or a role of government that can be automated and replicated. So it's absolutely the tighter the economy gets, the more jurisdictions will be looking for magic wand solutions to keep the taxpayer and the residents seeing that same level of service, but not necessarily having the same revenue.
I would love to hear the perspective from from Kristina and Didi.
I was going to apologize. I was replying to questions in the chat and didn't miss the question in full honesty. I apologize, Costas.
We're talking about AI kind of being the crutch for not replace or for hiring freeze or for people leaving the workforce and relates to the economy, right? So if the economy goes down, we rely more and more on AI instead of human work.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think about this often, honestly, as also somebody who teaches AI ethics courses at a university. I don't have a good answer to it though, aside from I do worry about kind of that cycle of, oh, we do not we don't have the capacity to hire for this, so it will be replaced by AI. But then, okay, so we're not hiring. So then people who are trying to apply will then have the difficulty of finding those positions. I worry about the ways in which it can make a lot of these issues that we already have around unemployment and the economy worse. Um, I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry, Costas. These are things that keep me up at night, Tim. So this is yeah, no, I fully agree. But then there's also kind of the double-edged sword of like, oh, but you also have to have these skills in order to be hired. And then this is I think that we're going to see a massive shift in the workforce over the next I mean, we're seeing it now, but I think over the next 5 years, there will be a huge shift. And of course, that could also mean that there are different jobs that are being created as a result of this as well. But I don't have the answers for what jobs will be created and which will be replaced. The statistics do help me a little bit when you look at the World Economic Forum and the research that they've been doing, of that they see that AI will create more jobs than it will replace. So that does help a little bit, but I don't have all the answers around the specifics. I'm sorry, Costas. I don't have a magic ball around here.
How
I'll be the
about you,
optimist in the
Kristina?
room. So my personal opinion, this doesn't really have anything to do with ESRI, and thank you, Kristina and Tim, for the wonderful work that you're doing in upskilling workers and bringing up kids into AI and helping them understand the importance of different factors of what they bring to the table in the workforce. I think it's wonderful, the work that both of you are doing. For me, when I shop, when I am in a store, when I am choosing whether to take a Waymo or to hire a cab, I think we all have personal responsibilities that we can add to whether or not we want to embrace that part of AI. So, for instance, I had the opportunity in San Francisco to try a Waymo. And I thought, I'm just not comfortable with that. And I'd rather hire someone and pay a person versus a Waymo. So I think we all have some personal responsibility that we can bring to the table, depending on our ethics and what's important to us. And then ensuring, like what we all do, ensuring that the people that we work with have knowledge about AI, that we are giving them the best information that we can to upskill them and keep them AI ready and focused on what's happening, not just now, but in the future. And I think that is something that we all can take responsibility for and give us a little bit of can't really say a hedge. I'm concerned about workforce as well and what AI will do to that. But, when you refuse to walk through the checkout lane that doesn't have a checker versus, hey, you know what, I'm going to stand 5 minutes in the lane so that a person can actually help me and I can talk to that person, it makes a difference.
Jay is asking another question to Kristina about job creation versus investment in AI infrastructure.
Yeah, I can say the numbers that I have don't have a further breakdown in terms of how that investment in specifically startups is being distributed. I can say, while looking at it, a lot of the larger startups that are really taking off in Orange County are becoming really large employers. So I know one of the biggest pieces of that pie in terms of the investment was Anduril, who has been expanding largely, and it seems as somebody whose partners in aerospace and defense, they seem to be growing very rapidly and taking on a lot of new talent. But I don't have a breakdown in terms of like how much of that is going to hardware versus how many people have they been hiring.
Well, I have a little bit deeper question and something that comes from my own work. One of the big challenges is getting people to understand that, the AI and the models and the tools are good and exciting, but you need to understand the deeper kind of process, because the AI results and what it tells you often is informed or is influenced by the quality of the data we feed into the AI. and also has the potential of exposing biases and vulnerabilities. And I'm not talking only about algorithmic biases of the AI, but also data biases, right? So we might collect data a different way. I mean, I do a lot of work with geodemographics and things, and I think Kristina, you mentioned, the demographics. We have bigger vulnerable groups like Hispanic or Latino and Asian populations. Those oftentimes they're economically disadvantaged. They lack the fundamental, digital literacy tools and resources. So as a result, maybe they're not quite understanding the implications, and also the data we collect might not be suitable for those kind of populations. So AI might end up, biasing the responses and the decisions we make. So do you see the need of proliferating that need for digital literacy at the society beyond just the professionals? And maybe this is something that both Didi and Tim can answer. Didi, I know you do some work with MOOCs, but are you interested on helping bring in some of that digital literacy to the citizens or the communities? And Tim, from your perspective, how do we cater some of those needs beyond just the public workers to influence the communities and the societies we live in? Sorry for the long question.
No, that's okay. It's a good question. And we do have our massive open online courses, the MOOCs, that are free and available to anyone. Christine and Tim, I don't know if your folks know about them, if you incorporate them into what you have in your programs, but feel free to. And if you need help with that, I'm happy to work with you. So again, that's not really what I deal with. I'm not on the development side, and how ESRI is looking at bringing more information out to the public. We do quite a bit already, and I can find out more information on that again and get that back to you, Costas. But I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing more. But right now, our open online, our MOOCs are a great way for people to learn, and completely free. So and there's 6 of them a year. So there's lots of opportunity for people to dig in. They last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a great opportunity for people that maybe are looking to learn a little bit more on a particular topic, or get interested in ArcGIS and interested in a particular topic. That's a great way for them to learn for free.
Yeah, and Costas, just kind of from a public policy perspective, I won't get like Pollyannic or soapbox-ish, but yeah, I think Christina diplomatically kind of referred to the lack of kind of technical expertise from some of our policymakers. It's really going to require, almost a modern Apollo project, but for the entire nation. We will have to, as a nation, and maybe it's something that can finally bring us together, right? Of if we want to be in the competitive edge in the next, period of time, we're going to need to come together and kind of wholesale override how we're, educating folks, and then just also how we're training a workforce. It's no small task, right? But nothing that we should shrink to. I think from the public policy perspective, to get specific, I said I wouldn't get Pollyannic or soapboxes, and I immediately did. But it is working on a good framework of laws that we can, try to get together. I think this laissez-faire ability is just not going to cut it. There has to be some common sense guardrails, and then that's going to help assuage the tension. And then we're going to need a kind of that back to the blueprint. Just something that we can move forward on, that's going to touch all facets of society. Well, that's a tough question, Costas. You got a whole panel on that one on its own.
I was going to agree with that in terms of Costas, you know how I stand on a lot of this, but I actually give classes that last a whole semester on this. So I think building that literacy is so important. I agree. But I agree in terms of, you not only need to know how to use the technology, but also the implications of that, which means you have to understand a lot of things in terms of society, cultures, to have, that critical thinking and that understanding of how things work. In addition to, I know with what you were mentioning and just all of these different tools and how they'll interact with each other. So I think building that literacy is very important. Having the understanding of the implications or the effects of that is also very important so that you don't perpetuate that bias or use it as a means of oppression. So I fully agree. I do think like I don't have a problem with early literacy. I do often when there's discussions of AI policy, I kind of laugh a little bit because we really haven't even regulated the internet, let alone how are we talking about regulating AI tools. So I think there are even larger discussions that need to happen within that. But as much as I can worry about what might happen, I think building that knowledge of it, of being able to know how it can be used, it is extremely helpful as well. That's, at the core of everything that I do. I really do believe that you should know what this is doing and the effects that this will have on you.
And with that, please tune in next month. Our next webinar is on policy and legislative aspects of AI. So, and with that, I would like again to thank our speakers for their time and effort, and also for their excellent comments, and everybody who spent their lunchtime participating in the webinar. We're hoping to see you again next month. On behalf of CGIA, have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
So
much,
much,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.